This video shows an I-car test for aluminum WCA03. This video is recorded at the customer's shop whom I previously trained to pass this test. If you are watching this video and you're not one of my regular subscribers, chances are you're doing this because you either have an I-car test coming up or you're getting information about what this all entails. This specific test can be done with 55-54 wire or with 53-56 wire. The specs for both of those wires will be given towards the end of the video that you can use with this particular machine. Which wire you have to use in your particular application is yet to be determined. A lot of I-car instructors like to use the 55-54 wire, so do insurance companies. And a lot of manufacturers make this a requirement to fix their vehicle. This is probably the most popular wire to use on this test.
7 welds, you can see vertical, then the last 3 are overhead. It also has in here what's coupons, 2.5, 1 millimeter, so you know what the thickness they are. I also have...
You got to do a 1 millimeter overhead?
Oh yeah. I also have, as long as we have this HTP welder here, it's going to be a piece of cake.
Really?
Alright, so we have a description here, and then we have the samples here.
Oh, very cool.
So you see, one is a butt joint with backing 2.5 millimeter. Oh, that's what's missing. My that's like this. And when we do vertical, we want to clamp it anywhere. We don't want to weld directly to here. This creates a heat sink and you don't get a good weld. Alright? And then we'll do 5, which is the overhead. Because we'll get our machine settings. We'll get our pattern going. And that way we're not jumping back and forth. Alright?
That makes sense.
Number 2 is a lap joint. It's thin on thick. And again, when we do these, we mark them with the gauge here. And if you mark both sides of this, you get your long and your short without moving back and forth. And you want to keep your weld just slightly on the thicker side and let it flow onto the thinner. So we'll do 2 and then 6. And these 6 I tailed on. I don't remember which welder this was. But sometimes when you tail on, you're heating up the material and you get a better weld. That's more important in the thicker ones than the thinner ones. I do it sometimes because I have bifocals and I don't have auto darkening. So when I flip my hood, sometimes I move. So I tail on just to make sure I'm not starting in a bad spot. Then we'll do 3, which is a butt joint with backing, all thin. You see I tailed on there. 7 is the overhead of it. And the last one we'll do is 4, which is a plug weld, and it has to tear a hole. Alright, this one is vertical only. When I do the aluminum, I like to put a tack. Put a tack right here in the beginning. Alright? No, because you're nervous, you're worried, you're wondering if you're doing a good weld, and if the tack's there, you know to stop. That's all. See? So it just helps.
Having another look at that arc shot here. For my taste, personally, this is a little bit up close there. The contact tip to work distance is barely 1/2 inch. This particular machine likes to have a contact tip to work distance at least 3/4 inch to 1 inch. And about halfway through the weld there, it's going to be some 5/8. like right here you see the flare up, and then it's slowed down a little bit, so it takes a second. Right there, as you see the wire coming out of the contact tip and the spray arc happening halfway in between the contact tip and the metal, that's where the distance is better. If you are too close, things get real drippy, or the machine can go on over current, and that's why you see a little bit of a belly on the weld there. When we go to break this, it appears to be a little bit cold because the settings weren't perfect yet, everything was being dialed in yet, and the way how it was done, the gun was held a little bit close.
I think it's gonna...
Yeah, we'll see. Should be a little bit hotter.
It tore out.
Well, when you look at the back side, you don't really see any indentation in the backer. Could be a little bit hotter.
Yeah. The length is good.
So on the back side, we could see a little bit of a line where the heat affected area was, but nothing was really bleeding through. You don't really want much bleed through, but a little bit more of a distinct line would be nice. But this is the test, how it's being determined if it's good or not. It has to break out. It has to break out of the parent metal, not out of the weld. The weld has to be attached to the backer, and then the tear out has to happen out of those front pieces. So those two are good welds that would have passed. So talking a little bit about settings here. This is for 1.2 millimeter diameter or 3/64 5554 aluminum wire. A wire that also is spec'd by the Ford Motor Company to use, and a lot of insurance company like you to use this wire on automotive repairs. It shows how to install this in your machine, what gun to hook up, what your settings need to be, your pre-flow, your post-flow, your set flow rate on the argon. You're supposed to hold a contact tip to work distance between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch, no less than 3/4, no more than 1 inch. Then it shows here the points 1 through 7 for the different weld joints on 1 millimeter thick 40 thousandths thick aluminum, and 2.5 millimeter thick aluminum, which is 100 thousandths thick. And it shows the amperage, voltage, material speed setting, and wire feed rate in inches per minute once you switch your machine over to metric. And this shows you how to set your HTP ProPulse 200 up and basically have perfect settings and not a little bit cold weld, what you just saw in the video. I mean, everybody welds different, and travel speed and ambient temperature, this all plays into effect here. But bottom line is, these settings get you really close in order to pass your iCar test. And it is outstanding and remarkable that there is such a thing that actually exists, and these, I want to call them cheat sheets, can be downloaded on the HTP website, or when you purchase a machine from them to do your iCar test, they deliver those with you. So really, they get you so close in the settings where there is hardly any guesswork. And I believe you can also get the same coupons that the iCar guy is bringing with him to test. You can buy those before you actually take the test and practice with these settings and those coupons, so that your chances of failing the test are very slim to none. So here you see a lap joint, a practice joint just run on a piece of scrap material, figuring out the stick out and how the settings work and everything just before taking the test.
Get a nice clean weld. The HTP likes a lot of stick out.
So here are a couple test runs now, trying to figure out how everything works. This is torch angle going absolutely perpendicular straight in. Some people prefer that. Some people say it gives them too much soot. Other people prefer to weld with a slight push angle uphill, and it gives them less soot and it works better for them. It's a matter of training and practicing. Most likely you'll be doing like 3, 4, 5 coupons till you really get it all nice down. And then when you get to this point, like here, that's the tack weld on the top, and then here that is a butt joint with backer with 2.5 times the thickness of the material for like the root face. And you see this goes in pretty nice, and this was all pretty much right out the box. Once the settings are there, it all works out really nice. And then here, old MIG habits die hard, a really short stick out, and things start to get drippy and runny, and it's just not working the way it's supposed to do, and the sound and the crackling. But eventually everybody got there. So let's talk about welding machine setup here. A little bit out of order, but it's important to have the correct gun for the correct material on there. The gun for aluminum will be labeled ER260. It's important to have the correct drive roller in there for aluminum. It's important to have the correct contact tips, the correct wire. Wire tension on aluminum should be at or just slightly under 1. The correct gas would be 100% argon gas with a flow rate somewhere between 40 and 50. To have this all dialed in and dialed in right, I mean, on these cheat sheets it will explain it all, but take the time to set the machine up correctly. This will help you so much later on, not having to fight everything twice and the hard way. And then the only other thing that is really where you have to overcome muscle memory is your stick out. 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch stick out on welding aluminum. It's even more so critical on the 55-54 wire. But once you have that down, it welds really nice. It welds vertical up a lot easier than steel wire even does. So, and then one more tip to where you put your ground clamp and how you do this. So this is the setup for vertical up here, and it works really well if you have the ground clamp either very close to your material or on your material, but so it doesn't bend the coupon, it doesn't create any sort of air gap, the weight of the clamp and the cable does. And looking at this video a little bit closer, it kind of goes fast forwarding through that I-card test that could take anywhere from like an hour and a half to multiple hours, depends on how many participants there are. And some vertical up, then some overhead action, and always try to get good line of sight at your puddle, and try to get good line of sight as far as how much contact tip to work distance do you have, and where the joint is. So you see the joint, you see the edges of the puddle, how the toes of the weld work, how much it washes in. That's really the key to welding. I mean, if you can't really see it, then you can't really weld it. If you wear bifocals, maybe consider some cheater lenses in the helmet or whatever helps you to get really good vision on this one. So here's the overhead weld. In the beginning, when the gun is a little bit too close, you can feel it kind of stuttering and sputtering and not really flowing right. As soon as right here the gun comes away like that 3/4 inch, that magic number, you see how everything flows real nice, lays in real nice. Pulse aluminum sticks really nice to the ceiling. There is really not much drippage and material falling out at you. And later on, when finally everybody produced welds similar to this, or at least they passed the brake test, then they get the little ICAR welding training certification sticker, put it right on their machine, and they're good to go for another 3 years.